Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a reel that John sent me. John sent me a spin fisher which I recently completed. And he sent me this one. This is the Shimano Spheros 5000 FA. It's a 4-ball bearing reel. And it's in for a general cleaning and service. And that's what we're going to do today. So one of the things that I like to do when I am working on a reel that I'm somewhat unfamiliar with is to go out and do the prep work ahead of time to make sure that I know what I'm getting into and what I can expect when I go to open up the reel. Well, how do you do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is to go out to a website and go get the schematic for the reel. This one is for the SP5000FA, and it shows the complete burst diagram of all of the pieces and the parts that make up this reel. It shows you the internal pieces as well as the rotor assemblies and the spool, and that tells you what you can expect as you take that reel apart. Well, this one looks to be a fairly generic Shimano reel, and I was just curious when I got the reel in whether I was going to see a worm drive or if I was going to see a straight crosswind block and gear as the oscillation system. And this one says to me that it's going to be the older or the more normal oscillation gear setup. So we're going to take this reel apart. We do so by taking off the external pieces first. And as I do, I would suggest that, or I'd ask you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, then I would ask you to also hit that notification button. And that way you'll see the reels that I'm working on, and you'll be able to make a decision as to whether you want to watch that video or not. And one of the things with the videos here is that they include everything. A full take apart, an explanation of what's going on in the reel, and they show you what points are critical to the cleanup, which ones are to be lubed and oiled, and you'll learn a lot about the reel itself. So one of the things we have here is just a little bit of dirt and grease on the handle while we were getting started there. I used the penetrating oil to clean up the one spot. I'm just cleaning up the shaft underneath, and you saw me spinning that because there was some buildup of some oils and greases there, and now that's pretty much gone. So we'll put the handle aside for a moment. We'll come up top and we'll take the spool off. We're going to work on a spool assembly last. It's just kind of the way I do it. If you want to serve the drag washers first, you can do that, and we'll show you later how to do that. But right now there's just a retention ring of 4 screws that are holding the assembly on from the washers. Most of the pieces and parts I take off, I put into a parts tray. In this case, it's the bottom of a fast food container, but from time to time it's something else. The idea here is to have a centralized location for all the parts that you remove, and to know where they are when you go to reinstall. Now, John's spin fisher that he sent in was, well, it was pretty thick with some old greases and the like. I'm kind of expecting the same here, and we'll see. So most of the repair and servicing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be cleaning, you're going to be inspecting, you're going to be able to get rid of all the old oils and greases, and then what you want to do is you want to come back in and put fresh oils and greases in. And of course, when you inspect, if there's any broken pieces or parts, you're going to need to replace those as well. Well, this is a tensioning washer. It controls the spool height for the line on the reel. And what we're doing here is we're just trying to get it off. It's particularly stubborn, but it will come off. And of course, it's full of grease. That's one of the reasons why I wear these protective gloves, is to make sure that the greases and oils that well, might be injurious. I'm not quite sure what they're made of. I find all kinds of greases and oils in there. But to the extent that I can keep them off my hand, I try to do that. Well, there was one more spool adjuster. You can see it here as I take it off. Spool adjuster washer on the click washer, and those 3 pieces will go in there. It's a good time to tell you, if you are not familiar with the reel, go ahead and take pictures along the way. Those pictures are going to enable you to kind of backtrack if you get stuck on the reassembly. You can go back in and find out what you did. And you can see we have a lot of old greases in that. I use paper towels for the most part. I don't use the cloth ones because I can transfer the old greases from one reel and the dirt and the grease and the grime to another. So I like to just kind of use the disposable towel. I've been accused of overusing that disposable towel, but I much prefer to use that. Keep that stuff off the bench, keep it off the next reel in. We're going to remove the collar now that holds the rotor nut. There were 2 screws that were on that. This should simply pull up. And then I'm thinking we probably have a 12mm nut here holding this on. And this one is coming off in a traditional counterclockwise rotation. Now, most of the time you have a deep collar here and you can't get a flat wrench in. That's when you would use a deep socket. In this case, you can clear the lip with that, and then you can remove that nut. That goes into my parts tray, and now we should be able to lift off the rotor. And we can see right away that we've got old sand and the like kind of accumulated here. So the reel needs a pretty good cleaning. Hopefully, I tested it. When I tested it, hopefully it remains clear, but there is a collar here. It's an anti-reverse clutch. It's old school. I don't think you can find many of these for the Shimanos any longer. You can also see that, well, we've got some salt and the like buildup there. All right, I'm going to take this collar off next. And I can probably get down, without doing this, I can probably get down to the lower case. But while I'm here, you're going to notice there's 6 screws. 4 of them have the stainless and 2 of them have a darker appearance to them. The 4 stainless are holding those screws to the reel body. Those are the ones you want to remove. The 2 darker screws are holding the cap and the internal spring and rollers together. And I can assure you, you will have a lot of fun if you remove those 2 and have springs flying all about. You can rebuild these. They're not easy to rebuild, and I would encourage you to just do it the way I've done it here. This little grommet fell off. That actually belongs on the axle shaft like this, in case you get disoriented or you don't know where that belongs. It's there, and it provides a seal into the pinion gear. Put that in my parts tray as well. There's a little bit of dirt up top on the collar. I tested the anti-reverse. It's working fine, and anti-reverses do not get any grease or oil. Actually, that's the downfall. You want to run these dry. So I'm just testing it here. I'm holding it, I'm turning it, and making sure that it's grabbing as it comes back, the collar, the it being the collar there. So we're okay with that. All right, a good way to solve for this is a little bit of wear, and you can see that there's a little bit of salt on there, or some kind of micro sand debris. I'm just going to flood that with penetrating oil, and I wanted to wait until I had that anti-reverse clutch off to do that, because I don't want to get that grease into there. That little stud here will correspond to a little insert here. You can see it on the back end. There's a little groove cut in here, and that's where the stud for the anti-reverse override is going to run. This little stud right here. So just be aware that when you go to reposition that bearing on when it's time to reinstall, that those 2 have to line up. There's 4 case screws on the outside. We're going to take those off next. I don't think we have a bump guard that gets in the way. We don't. And you can see by the general nature of the screws coming out that it's been a while since this reel has been serviced. There's all kinds of buildup on that screw, and if that screw was out previously, well, it would have been cleaned and there would have been less of that buildup here. Here's a partially set screw. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. What may have happened here, we may find that we have different length screws. That's not uncommon in a Shimano reel. And what is happening from time to time is that people put them in the wrong slot. And that's why they sit prouder. Yep, there you go. There's a small one there. My bet is that this is a small one here, and that's where the long one belongs. Well, what are you going to do to try and figure that out? Well, if you're paying attention before, if this is a short one, let's see if it's the short one. It is the short one. Go to your schematic. can take a look. And we have a 1776 and a 1776. So these two long screws belong here, and the two short screws belong there. They were out of sequence. That was why this one was running proud. All right, I'm going to just do what I like to do on screws that have had that buildup. Just a little bit of penetrating oil as a degreaser. We'll set those aside in my parts tray so that we can continue. We can take this side plate off now. And I'm never quite sure on this one. I guess it comes off this way. There you go. And yeah, so here's your answer. And John, you can see it's pretty obvious that it's been a long time since this one's been worked on. It's all dried and caked. And as I mentioned, a lot of this service is all about the cleaning and the relubrication of it. So sometimes it goes too far, and a part will break because it didn't get the grease, or it'll wear down excessively because the grease has trapped micro sands and the like. And if that's the case, well, it's the old shame on you, right? You need to maintain these reels in order to have them be your best friend and keep fishing with you day in and day out. All right, I just used the penetrating oil as a degreaser here. The bearings, surprisingly, are still going fine. Sometimes those greases and the like get in there. All right, I think that this is removable. Maybe removable. Should be removable. There we go. There's a rubber band under here that's holding it, I guess. Yep, there's that. So this probably should have come off. We'll just move that over the top here so that we can put it back on when it's time to reinstall. All right, that piece goes into my tray. Lots of chunky grease. That's never a good sign. That says that that grease is well past its expiration date. And now we should be able to remove the main gear. It may be that this main gear is got a screw on this side, so let's go ahead and just check. Nope, the main gear is fine, but again, look what we have in here. We have a whole bunch of that dried grease that's kind of hanging around the outside here. And it's probably acting as a kind of a wedge for that main gear to come out of the bearing. A little bit of degreaser here. And help loosen that up as we try to pull the post out. And again, you want to be pretty gentle with these things. You can do a certain amount, and you have to just kind of sit back and work it out. Just got to reattach the handle. Use that for extra pull. And I'm thinking we probably need to take the axle shaft off. So let's go back down here. I thought that in my memory, and I guess my memory has failed me a little bit, I thought that we would be able to get through that. But it's obvious we can't. There's a screw right here that needs to be removed in order to remove that axle shaft. And that screw's never come out because I can see the blue Loctite on that screw. Into the parts tray. Let's see if we can get the axle shaft out now. Everything on this is so tight because, well, just simply hasn't been worked on in a while. Now I'm going to find the button because I need leverage for the axle shaft. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so no surprises here. Coagulated grease on the shaft. Take that button back off. Looks like the gear assembly has come out. That's fine. Some of the greases just pulled that right up too. And other than it being dry, it seems to be okay. I'm just going to spray this down with the penetrating oil, get that, dissolve a little bit of the dirt in there while I'm at it. We'll come back and lube that up in a moment. Now we should be able to get this guy out. Yep, got that guy out. Here's our crosswind block. Here's another chunk of grease. Look at all of this grease here. I'm going to take these parts and get these off to another piece because this grease is really just going to become problematic if we don't. So you got some parts with no grease on it, and you got other parts that got grease everywhere. Just be patient, take your time. I'm going to use a pick as a scraper here to get some of that old dry grease off. And it's just chunking. This is actually something that you see in reels that are 30 or 40 years old that have been sitting in somebody's closet. They were grandpa's reels, they were grandma's reels, somebody's, and all of a sudden somebody had asked you to go clean it up. It's also the type of grease that you see in flea markets reels, because the flea market reels have had the same thing. They've probably been acquired in an estate sale or something and haven't been cared for in years. Well, it's kind of the condition of this reel here. So if you have one of these reels, well, you're kind of seeing how it comes apart. Spent hopefully years, doesn't require the type of cleaning that's required here. This is a grommet that's going to go in the bottom here. I was hiding in the grease. And we'll just finish this up. I know probably edit some of this because you just don't need to see me removing chunks of grease and trying to do a general cleanup here. I know most folks have their own reels apart. They're just trying to figure out a way to get them back together again, or they want to see the overview of the service. And a lot of times they just don't need the cleaning because they've been serviced, well, let's just say more frequently than this one. Okay, so it was time to let the ultrasonic cleaner do its job because this just got way too dirty and way too much energy expended on it. So it's time to reassemble. We're going to start by putting the pinion gear assembly back in. We'll do that first by putting some fresh greases and oils on. We've checked the teeth. We've checked all of the angles on it to make sure that they're all the same. Check that they're symmetrical. And now a good amount of grease goes into that. This has been sitting in some solvent. We're going to put the bearing back on. This is why I like to use the paper towels, because for whatever reason we just got a little piece picked up on my bench there. Here's another piece. I'm going to oil that bearing. I oil the bearings, I don't grease them. Now we can reinstall the pinion gear assembly into the carrier here. And I guess I got ahead of myself. That little plastic loop with the flat square side on the back goes underneath here as a shim. And we can take our crosswind gear. We've inspected all of the teeth on that after cleaning. We made sure that there's no chips or cracks or breaks in the gear. And this gear gets grease all around. It gets grease on the back side, on the teeth, and on the face. When that rides over the top, we can put a little bit of grease onto the stud where that's going to ride. And when you go to put the crosswind gear in, make sure that the crosswind block's stud is below. That's something I didn't take a lot of time to clean, so I better clean that off right now. And while I do, if you have questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if you maybe you're working on a reel and you're stuck on some aspect of the repair or the service, if you leave that question in the comments section, I'll be happy to try and answer that for you. Well, I was seeing all kinds of reasons why this reel bogged down in performance. Most of all of it is dry grease, and An example of the dried greases where it would turn around in here, it's all jammed up. So that would lead to rough performance in the turnaround of the crosswind assembly. Alright, that's cleaned up. We'll go ahead and put the grease on that. And if you didn't remember which way this went, I'll go back to your pictures and take a look. It does face up, like this. We should be able to get the main gear in now. We've done a good job of cleaning that off. Same idea happened here, all dried grease in the teeth, on the back of it, on the face of it, and it's just not going to run smooth with all that grease getting in the way. Think of it as potholes on the road. You're just going to kind of keep getting a thump to this when it's working like that. All right, we've cleaned off the axle shaft. If that was rough, you could certainly use some steel wool or something to kind of buff out the roughness in it. We want to put a light coating of grease onto that. And then we want to take the shaft and insert it through the pinion gear, kind of the reverse of the way that we got it out. Line it up with your crosswind block, insert it, and then make sure that the hole for the set screw is here. Looks like that just pushed a little bit of grease out. We'll get that out. So I guess the theme of this one is there's a lot of grease on this reel that, well, bogged down performance, but probably hasn't been serviced in quite some time, and that will be with the consequence of that. I'm just lucky that the pieces didn't break. Alright, we're tightening that down. Then we've got to go put that little cover on. There's grease everywhere in this little thing, huh? Okay, next on goes this cover. There's 2 points that's going to ride, and then this rubber band is going to come down over it and hold that in place, just like that. That's an anti-vibration band, but it also serves a dual purpose here in that it holds that piece in. Alright, we have 2 shim washers that go on the main gear. This is the side that had the burring in it. Again, I've flushed those. I will oil them. Now we should be able to load the side plate in. Remember what we said. We looked and we found one of these screws was out of place. So the reel has been serviced previously in its lifetime. But whoever did the service had the screws in wrong. That's why I always say to check the screws when you take them out. That way you'll know which way they go going in if they are a different length. These have 2 different lengths. Since I didn't take it apart initially, well, I went to the schematic to find the answer there, and it said that the 2 long screws belong on this side. We had 1 long screw on this side up top. They attempted to put the other long screw down here, and that's why it sat proud. And Shimano, for whatever reason, seems to be known for that, mixing up the side plate screws. Not sure why it is, but they certainly do it. These screws you can use a Phillips head or a flat blade. In this case, the flat blade seems to be doing a little bit better here. At least on that one. And it's possible that whoever did the last one may have used a mechanical screwdriver and over-torqued it and broke out the threading. Alright, we're kind of getting back to where it belongs. That's a much better fit for the long screw. Remember what we said about this stud here? That stud's going to go into the channel. I feel like a dentist sometimes just picking away at some of the older stuff. Get that in there. Alright. When you take your assembly for that, find the channel. That's the channel down here. Make sure that when you go to put that on, that you're lining that and that the stud does in fact go into that pocket. And now what I like to do with these is I like to go north, south, east, west. So go opposites. That way you'll keep even torque as you mount that anti-reverse clutch onto the body. So we've done a lot of cleaning up on this reel. I guess it's testimony to Shimano just how strong the reels are, because, well, it's been quite an effort here. I'll put the rotor on next. You can see how much this reel worked despite having all the greases and having a whole bunch of dried stuff to overcome. Wipe that down. Again, we can take our 12mm and tighten it up. Give it a spin. Probably the first time in a long time it's spun like that. Once you've tightened down that rotor nut, go get that little ferrule or spacer that goes on the shaft here. And then you can put your collar on to tie down the nut, and then we can grab our little screws here. Micro screwdriver probably will work best. One more of those. These gloves keep things off your hands, but they also make everything very slippery too. There we go. That's the second one of those. Click ratchet is next. And we have the two shim washers for the spool height. That's one, two. And all we have to do is go inside, make sure that the drags get serviced, because we haven't seen service on anything else in a while, so we might as well check those. To do that, there's 4 Phillips head screws. We'll take those out. This is just a retention ring. Put those screws into the parts tray. I'm also going to notice whether they're all the same size. I believe these are all the same size, unlike that side case that we did. And just like the others, it's been a while since these screws have been taken out, so there's some accumulation of some dirt and salt debris and the like on there. And we're almost done. The 4 screws removed, that lid should just come up. I loosened all 4 of those without taking them completely out because I wanted to see how that top was going to react. This, of course, has line on it. I'm just hoping that it doesn't spring the line when I remove this top disc. There's a water seal, but it has no place to drain. It's kind of interesting when you look at it that way. And these I'm laying right on the desk because they'll be the next ones to go back in. Okay, 4 are out. The top should come off. Here's that seal we were talking about. Now we can get to the drag washers. And as I suspected, these are felt drag washers. The cavity is relatively clean. The washers now, you want to pay attention to make sure that they're not ripped or torn. This one's okay. You need to flood these with oil, a good healthy drink of oil. When you do that, you want to clean the metals off. These would be the metals. You have two rounded ones that have rectangular holes. Those are top and bottom. They're called keyed washers. The one in the middle has got the 2 points on it and a rounded circle inside. That's called the eared washer. Again, give them all a healthy drink. The third felt washer. Now, these felt washers are fine. People seem to become prejudiced towards felt washers. If you're tearing them up, then of course you want to go and do an upgrade. You want to get a fabric washer or carbon tex or something like that. These show no evidence of being torn up, so there's no reason why you would need to go ahead and upgrade them unless you wanted to. All right, that goes back on. Now we need to align to the big holes. Tighten these down. Okay, you didn't need to see me tighten all of these screws down, so we just kind of skipped ahead a little bit. Just tightening the last of them. Now you have the indentations, so that's the bottom. So go ahead and fit these so that you have your screw sets now for the others. So overall, this is a nice reel, and obviously it's been built with the right materials because it was able to overcome lack of grease and dried grease and the like. So that's always a testimony to how it's been designed. And a lot of times folks will ask, what reel should I buy? And I tell them, if you're not familiar with reels, there's quite a few quality manufacturers, but if you go with Penn, Daiwa, or Shimano, you're going to pay a little bit more, but you're probably not going to get hurt by buying something that maybe came from another manufacturer, or maybe was a couple of dollars cheaper or something. But each reel that's out there in the marketplace, whether it's a value-priced reel or a high-priced reel, has its purpose. And then what usually happens is people become disappointed with the reels when they were buying it for one thing and tried to use it for something else. So if you're buying it as an occasional reel where a visitor to your cabin or your shore house or whatever is coming, and then you wind up using it every day, well, you may be disappointed because the reel weighs too much or just wasn't designed for everyday use. And so always know what you want, and it'll always do what you want it to do when you buy it for that. When you try to ask it to do things that you didn't initially buy it for, that's when folks tend to get disappointed. The spool is back on. Tighten this down, make sure that the drags are holding. They are, and then you want to back it off so you don't compress it. Go ahead and grab the handle. That probably should have been a tell right there. When I opened up the handle and the handle was caked with salt, probably should have been a tell right there that the rest of the reel was going to be tight. Final test. Okay, there you go. Shimano Spheros 5000 FA. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of oil onto the seams of the bail. Let's put a little bit onto the wire, trip it. There you go, that's it. That's how you take apart and service one very dry and grease encrusted reel, and how you get it out there fishing for a second chance. So I appreciate everybody watching. To all that are first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything that you do. To everybody else, please stay safe and stay well, and have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.